Let me give you a bit of background. My mom and her cousin, who I call my aunt, have always been extremely close. They grew up together, and even though they live in different parts of the city now, they talk almost every day. They're constantly messaging each other on social media, sharing photos, gossiping about family drama. You know how it is. My aunt has this friend. I'll just call her the woman since I don't want to use real names. This woman has a daughter who, frankly, has had a pretty rough life. Even though the woman tried to present herself as this perfect mother to the outside world, those of us who knew her better saw how she really treated her daughter. She'd leave her alone for days while she went out partying, yell at her for the smallest things, and sometimes even get physical. It was terrible. My mom and aunt kept up appearances with this woman because they felt sorry for her daughter and wanted to keep an eye on the situation. But behind closed doors, they couldn't stand her. They'd often talk about how they wished they could do something to help the poor girl. So anyway, last year my mom got a message from what appeared to be my aunt's social media account. The message asked my mom for a huge favor. When my mom responded asking what was up, the person said they were in a tough spot and needed to borrow some money. My mom asked how much they needed, and the response was shocking: $500. The message claimed they would pay it back the following week. When my mom saw this request, she immediately felt something was off. She came to my room, phone in hand, looking confused. She asked me to take a look at the messages and wanted to know if I thought they sounded like my aunt. After reading through them, I immediately shared her suspicion and told her that no way did these sound like my aunt. For one thing, my aunt had just gotten paid from her job the week before, so she should have been fine financially. Also, in all the years I've known her, she's never once asked to borrow money from my mom. She's always been fiercely independent that way. And even if she did need money for some emergency, she'd call, not send a vague message. But the biggest red flag was how the messages were written. My aunt has a very specific way of typing. She uses a ton of emojis, writes in full sentences, and has certain phrases she always uses. These messages had none of that personal touch. My mom and I looked at each other, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. Instead of calling out the scammer right away, she decided to play along to see where this would go. She messaged back saying that she actually owed my aunt $100 from when she helped with the car repair, so she'd send $600 total. The person replied with excessive gratitude, calling my mom a lifesaver. My mom then asked how they wanted to receive the money, suggesting she could bring cash over later that day like usual. This is where things got really suspicious. My aunt always preferred cash transactions with family. She was old school that way. The person messaged back asking if my mom could deposit the money directly into their account instead, claiming it would be more convenient. When my mom agreed and asked for the account number again, they said they would text it right away. At this point, my mom had all the confirmation she needed that something wasn't right. She told me she was going to call my aunt's landline right away. I sat next to her as she dialed, curious to hear what was happening. When my aunt picked up, my mom kept her voice casual. She simply asked what my aunt was up to that day. My aunt replied that she was just sitting in her living room having tea and watching a show they had discussed the previous day. She asked my mom why she was calling. My mom asked if everyone was at home right now. When my aunt confirmed they were, my mom requested that she check what her daughter was doing at that moment. My aunt sounded confused but agreed. We heard her footsteps as she walked through her house. Then suddenly, there was a commotion on the other end of the line. We could hear my aunt shouting, demanding to know what someone was doing with her phone and who they were messaging. We could hear the woman's daughter in the background trying to explain herself. Then my aunt yelled for the person to get out of her house immediately. When my aunt returned to the phone, her voice was shaking with anger. She told us that the woman's daughter had been in her guest room using her phone to message my mom. She explained that the girl must have taken the phone when she went to the bathroom earlier. She asked what the girl had been requesting. My mom explained about the money request, and my aunt was horrified. She told us that the woman had dropped her daughter off earlier that day, claiming she had an appointment and asking if my aunt could watch her for a few hours. My aunt, being the kind person she is, had agreed. The aftermath was pretty intense. My aunt called the woman immediately and told her what her daughter had tried to do. At first, the woman tried to claim her daughter was just plain a prank, but when my aunt threatened to report the attempted fraud to the police, the truth came out. It turned out the woman needed money to buy alcohol. Her addiction had gotten worse over the past few months, and she'd been spending her paycheck on drinking instead of taking care of her daughter. She'd coached her daughter to try to get money from my mom, using my aunt's phone when she wasn't looking. The most satisfying part of all this came about a month later. The incident prompted my aunt to finally report the woman's neglect to Child Protective Services. There was an investigation, and given the woman's history and this latest incident, her daughter was removed from her care. The girl now lives with her father, who had been fighting for custody for years but never had enough evidence of the mother's unfitness. From what my aunt tells us, she is doing much better now. She's in therapy, doing well in school, and finally has a stable home environment. As for the woman, she was ordered to attend rehab and parenting classes if she ever wants to see her daughter again. She hasn't made much progress with either. Sometimes I think about how differently things could have gone if my mom hadn't been so observant, or if my aunt hadn't discovered what was happening when she did. That poor girl might still be stuck in that terrible situation, and my mom might have lost $500. It's been a year now, and whenever we have family gatherings, this story somehow always comes up. It started as something shocking and upsetting, but now we can laugh about how ridiculous and desperate the attempt was, and we're all grateful that it led to a much better life for that girl in the end. Boy, do I have a story for y'all today. Life hasn't been easy for me these past few months. I lost my job at the warehouse when they downsized, and my boyfriend and I couldn't keep up with rent after that. We tried everything: payment plans with a landlord, borrowing money from friends, even selling some of our stuff. Nothing worked. 2 weeks ago, we got the eviction notice, and just like that, we were homeless. We couldn't crash with family since my parents live across the country, and my boyfriend's family situation is complicated. His sister offered her couch, but her place is tiny and she's got 2 kids. So we pulled our savings and checked into this budget hotel on the edge of town. Not the nicest place, but better than sleeping in our car. My boyfriend picked up some night shifts at a gas station, which meant weird hours. I've been applying for jobs non-stop during the day. We're stretched thin, stressed out, and just trying to get back on our feet. The hotel is our temporary sanctuary while we figure things out. Now to the actual story. This happened just 2 days ago, and I'm still processing it all. It was around 5 a.m. on Monday. My boyfriend had just gotten back from his shift, and as usual, he wanted to smoke before coming to bed. Hotel policy: no smoking in the rooms. So he went outside to the designated smoking area near the parking lot. I was knocked out cold. Hadn't slept well in days, worrying about our situation. The next thing I know, the hotel phone is ringing. I fumbled for it, half asleep. The front desk person told me urgently that I needed to come down immediately because my boyfriend had been attacked. Those words jolted me awake like a bucket of ice water. I threw on whatever clothes I could find and ran barefoot to the elevator. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. When I got to the lobby, there were police officers and paramedics. My boyfriend was sitting on a chair, blood on his jeans, looking pale. Before I could reach him, they loaded him into an ambulance. I frantically asked what happened and where they were taking him. The officer explained that my boyfriend had been assaulted outside and they needed to ask him some questions, but first he needed medical attention. He told me I could meet him at County Hospital. I called a cab, my hands shaking so badly I could barely use my phone. The 15-minute ride to the hospital felt like hours. When I arrived, they wouldn't let me see him right away because the police were involved. In the waiting room, there was this woman pacing back and forth, yelling at hospital security. She looked to be in her 40s, fancy purse, expensive haircut, totally out of place in this run-down county hospital. The woman was demanding to see her son immediately and threatening to call corporate about the situation. The security guard tried to calm her down, explaining that the doctors were treating her son and that the police needed to speak with him first. She responded by asking if he knew who she was, and claiming that her husband was a personal friend of the mayor. I had no idea who she was or how she was connected to what happened to my boyfriend. I approached her cautiously. I asked her if she knew what was going on, mentioning that my boyfriend had been brought in. She whipped around, eyes narrowing at me. She immediately called my boyfriend a psycho and accused him of stabbing her son. When I said my boyfriend was the one who had been attacked at our hotel, she denied this. She told me that my boyfriend had attacked her son and his friends for no reason, even claiming he had called her son's friend a racial slur before going crazy with a knife. I felt sick. That didn't sound like my boyfriend at all. He's never been violent, and he definitely doesn't use racial slurs. I stammered that there must be some mistake. She insisted there was no mistake and claimed my boyfriend was clearly unstable, even going so far as to say he had stabbed himself to make it look like self-defense. When I said that was impossible, she defended her son, describing him as a good kid and an honor student who was just standing up for his friend when my boyfriend supposedly went berserk. I didn't know what to believe. We'd been together for 3 years, and I'd never seen my boyfriend get into a fight. But I wasn't there when it happened, and this woman seemed so convinced. The next few hours were a blur. I sat in that waiting room, avoiding eye contact with the woman, who kept making loud phone calls about pressing charges and hate crime laws. Finally, a doctor came out to tell me I could see my boyfriend. He had a bandaged knee and looked exhausted. I asked him what the hell happened. My boyfriend took a deep breath and explained everything. He'd gone out for a smoke, just wanting some peace and quiet after his shift. A group of 3 people approached him, 2 guys and a girl. They were clearly intoxicated, laughing loudly and stumbling. He told me they had started asking him for cigarettes, then if he had any weed. He said he told them he just wanted to smoke and go back inside and that he wasn't in the mood to chat. That's when one of them, a younger white kid, got aggressive. My boyfriend described how the kid started talking in a ridiculous fake accent, saying something about testing his gangster and other nonsense. Before my boyfriend knew what was happening, the kid had pulled out a mini hatchet and swung it at his knee. My boyfriend showed me the laceration on his knee. The doctor said it wasn't deep enough to damage tendons or his kneecap, but it was definitely not self-inflicted. He explained that he had his pocket knife with him, the one he carries for work. He pulled it out to defend himself. The kid came at him again, and he slashed at him to keep him back, hitting him across the chest. Then the kid's friend jumped in, and my boyfriend caught him on the arm. I asked about the racial slurs they were claiming. My boyfriend adamantly denied ever saying anything like that. He continued explaining that they tried to grab his vape and bong. He let them have the vape, but he smashed his bong rather than let them take it. Then they ran back into the hotel. He yelled for help, and some guest helped him to the lobby where they called 911. Just then, a police officer came in to take his statement officially. While they were talking, a nurse entered the room. The nurse told us that there was a woman who claimed she witnessed the incident and wanted to speak with us both. It was an older lady, probably in her 60s. She looked nervous. The witness introduced herself as staying in room 215 with a window overlooking the smoking area. She said she saw everything and that those young people had been harassing several guests that night. She confirmed they had approached my boyfriend, and when he tried to ignore them, they got aggressive. She emphasized that the young one definitely had some kind of weapon, which she saw reflect in the light before my boyfriend fell. She turned to the officer and mentioned that she had already given a statement to another officer, but wanted to apologize to my boyfriend. She admitted she should have called the front desk when she first saw those kids bothering people, but she didn't want to get involved. The officer thanked her for coming forward. After she left, he explained that the 17-year-old had actually confessed to attacking my boyfriend first, when questioned separately from his mother. Apparently, they'd been trying to rob people at the hotel all night. I asked if the mother knew her son had confessed. The officer confirmed that yes, she did know, but she was insisting he was coerced and that they were discriminating against them. He added that she had threatened to sue the department, the hotel, and my boyfriend. Later that day, my boyfriend was discharged. We pressed charges against the kid and his friend. The district attorney is pursuing robbery and assault with a deadly weapon charges. The security footage from the hotel confirmed my boyfriend's story completely. When we returned to the hotel to collect our things, we decided to find another place to stay. The woman, the entitled mom, was in the lobby screaming at the manager. She was insisting that her son was the victim and demanding that my boyfriend be removed from the hotel immediately. The manager told her that they had reviewed the security footage and that her son and his friends had been banned from the property. He warned her that if she continued to harass their guests, she would be banned as well. When she saw us, she started toward my boyfriend, pointing her finger accusingly. She shouted that he was going to pay for what he did to her son. Security stepped between them and the manager told her that was enough and asked her to leave the premises. She responded by asking if they knew who her husband was and threatening that they would own the place when their lawyers were done with them. As security escorted her out, she kept screaming about justice and how her perfect son would never hurt anyone. The hotel comped us 3 nights at their sister property across town as an apology for what happened. The mother is still telling anyone who'll listen that my boyfriend attacked her innocent son in an unprovoked hate crime. She even showed up at the gas station where my boyfriend works to harass him until his manager banned her from the property. The kid took a plea deal for a reduced sentence. The mother is now trying to sue the hotel for emotional distress. Some people really can't accept that their precious angels could ever do anything wrong, even when there's video evidence and a confession. My boyfriend's knee is healing well, and we've finally found an apartment we can afford. But man, I'll never forget that entitled mom trying to convince me that my boyfriend would stab himself just to get her innocent little angel in trouble. The delusion is strong with that one. I had just turned 17 and finally convinced my dad to get me a debit card. It wasn't easy. I've been asking for months, explaining how I needed one to manage my earnings from my part-time job at a local food chain. Finally, on my birthday, he handed me an envelope with a card inside. My dad told me sternly that this was a test and that he wanted to see if I could be responsible with money before becoming an adult. I nodded eagerly. Our family isn't rich by any means. We're financially stable, but my parents work hard for everything we have. That's why I've been trying to ease their burden by paying for my own stuff with my part-time job money. Things like PC games, small treats when I'm out with friends, and I've been saving up for a PS5 for months now. The card became my prized possession. I checked it constantly, making sure it was always secure in my pocket. I was determined to prove to my dad that I could handle this responsibility. The incident. Last weekend, I was at the mall with 3 of my friends. We were just walking around, window shopping, and talking about school and video games. Suddenly, one of my friends started feeling dizzy and needed to sit down. She weakly told us she needed to sit, looking visibly pale. This had happened before. She gets nauseous if she walks too much without rest. My other 2 friends immediately guided her to a nearby bench. I told her I would get her some water and medicine after spotting a supermarket across the way. I rushed inside, grabbed a bottle of water and some aspirin. They sell it over the counter at supermarkets where I live, and headed to check out. All the regular registers had long lines, but I noticed an empty self-checkout lane at the end. Perfect, I thought, sprinting over to scan my items. I paid with my debit card, hurriedly tried to stuff it in my back pocket while bagging the items, and ran back to my friends. The supermarket was loud and crowded, and in my rush to help my friend, I didn't notice when my card slipped out of my pocket and fell to the ground. I gave my sick friend the water and medicine, and we sat with her until she felt better. That's when I reached for my debit card and realized it wasn't there. I panicked, exclaiming about my missing card while patting all my pockets. I realized I must have dropped it at checkout. I raced back to the self-checkout area where I saw a woman in her 40s, standing alone at the machine I had used. She was scanning several expensive items: fancy imported caviar, premium sparkling water, high-end shampoo, and other luxury products. When I got closer, I saw something that made my stomach drop. She was holding my debit card in her hand. I approached her politely and tapped her shoulder. I politely told her I thought she had found my card and asked if I could have it back. She turned around and gave me the most condescending look I've ever seen. She actually waved my card in my face and sneered at me. She told me to back up, insisting the card was hers. She questioned why a child like me would even have such a card. I'm pretty tall for my age, 6 feet 1 inch, but I have a baby face, so people often think I'm younger than I am. But that was no excuse for what she was doing. I told her that the card was mine and asked her again to return it. She completely ignored me and tried to tap my card against the payment sensor to pay for her stuff. I looked at the screen and was horrified to see her total was equivalent to about $200. My card has that contactless chip that lets you just tap to pay, so she didn't even need my PIN. I quickly put my hand over the sensor to block her. In the sternest voice I could manage, I demanded that she hand the card over immediately. What happened next was like something out of a bad movie. This grown woman threw herself onto the ground, curled up like she was protecting herself, and started screaming at the top of her lungs. She began shrieking that I was a thief, claiming I wanted to rob her and had hit her trying to steal from her. She screamed for help repeatedly. Everyone at the nearby registers turned to stare. My face burned with embarrassment and anger. Thankfully, a security guard rushed over immediately. He approached the woman first, helping her up while she spewed all kinds of horrible things about me, including some racist remarks. I'm Middle Eastern, and where I live, some locals have certain views about us. The security guard, who looked completely white, surprised both of us by turning to me and asking in my native language what had happened. I explained everything to him in our shared language while the woman stood there fuming. She clearly hadn't expected the guard to be Middle Eastern too. I explained that it was my debit card, that I had dropped it after using this machine earlier, and that now she was trying to use it to buy expensive stuff. The security guard nodded and ordered both of us to follow him to the back office so they could check the security footage. We were led by different guards to the security office and told to wait. The whole time we sat there, the woman glared at me while I tried to keep my cool. After about 5 minutes, the first security guard returned with a stern expression. He looked at the woman and told her she needed to return the card to me immediately. Instead of being embarrassed or apologetic, this woman burst into dramatic tears. She wailed that she was a single mother who needed the money. She claimed her children were hungry and that I didn't need the card because I was just a kid. I sat there in total discomfort, watching this 40-something woman throw a tantrum instead of taking responsibility for trying to steal from a minor. It was both pathetic and infuriating. The security guard wasn't moved by her performance. He explained that the footage clearly showed me using the card earlier and accidentally dropping it. He also noted that it showed her picking it up, looking directly at my name on the card, and deciding to use it anyway. He stated that this was theft and possibly fraud. He confiscated the card from her and after confirming it was mine by checking my ID, returned it to me. The woman was still crying and making excuses as another guard escorted her out a different door. The first guard turned to me and asked if I wanted to press charges, explaining that what she did was a crime. I thought about it for a moment. Part of me felt bad. What if she really was struggling? But then I remembered how entitled she acted, how she wasn't even ashamed of stealing from a teenager, how she believed she deserved my money more than I did just because she was older. I stated that yes, I wanted to press charges. The guard nodded and led me to a small office where I gave a statement to both him and a police officer who arrived shortly after. They took down all my information and told me they would be in touch. 2 weeks later, I received a call that the woman had been charged with attempted theft and credit card fraud. She was sentenced to community service and ordered to pay a fine. My dad, who I'd had to tell about the whole ordeal, looked at me with unexpected pride when I got off the phone. He told me I had handled the situation well, that I stood up for myself but did it the right way, through the proper channels. I've since become even more careful with my debit card, but I'm glad I didn't let that woman get away with her entitled behavior. And yes, I'm still saving up for that PlayStation 5.